everyone, and welcome to the crossroads of talk, news, analysis, and interviews for the greatest sport on the planet, SlamBall. SlamBall Nation is not just a podcast. No. We're not just a couple of noobs. You know what I'm saying? Sipping on our kombucha, talking about what we see in the sport on TV. No, that time will come soon enough when my co-host and I are horribly fired. But for now, this is an insider podcast hosted by two current SlamBall coaches. I'm your host and head coach of the world champion mobs. Got a nice ring to it. Brendan Kirsch, joined by my co-host, the eccentric, the energetic, the exuberant, and the highly entertaining. And those are just the adjectives that begin with E, Coach. We did E this week. Hernando Planells Jr., head coach of the Buzzsaw. Coach H, what's happening?
Listen, I'm excited to yet once again grace your presence and grace the presence of SlamBall fans all over the galaxy. Because let's not forget, guys, it's a galaxy because in case you didn't know, the Earth is flat. But we're going to go on and we'll talk about that later on. Today we are, as you can tell, proudly not sponsored, but should be by Under Armour, as every single one of our people today are wearing Under Armour. And in honor of protecting this house, this is episode 10 of SlamBall Nation. And listen, Under Armour would be gladly to protect the house of SlamBall if you give us a call.
There you go, Taylor. Teed it all up for you. It's nice and teed. We are definitely all grown up, Coach. We started as noobs, having no clue how to record or edit our podcast, and look at us now. We're less noobish, and we just bypass the editing altogether. That's right. We're one-take wonders, people. But, man, we did figure out the audio and the Wi-Fi, which is a big part of the challenge. So congratulations to you both today. Which reminds me, if you are watching this podcast, why? You guys can just listen to this on audio, whether you're in your car, at the coffee shop, at the gym. We don't do anything cool, okay? We're not going to jump up and break into a dance-off or anything like that. So if you just want to listen to us on Spotify or YouTube or any of the platforms that we're, feel free to do that because you're not missing out on anything by watching the podcast. All right, let's get started. Our guest today is a former SlamBall legend. He was one of, if not the highest flyer the game has ever seen, and he's also the current head coach of the Ozone. Trevor Anderson, TA, welcome to the nation, brother.
I've been waiting my entire life for the opportunity to have both of you all in one place at one time, even though we're in separate places. We're all on the same platform, and doggone it, let's get to it.
Wait, all I know is that you're introduced as a former SlamBall legend. So apparently...
Yeah, I used to be a legend until the new guys came, and now there's new legends, and now I'm just on the podcast, so... I'm the unofficial third host of the podcast, so, I mean, you know, you guys just call on me when you need me. Kind of like broadcasting on ESPN for SlamBall games. They called you guys first, and then when you guys are tied up winning games, they just decided to ask me to commentate them. So, and I was honored, nonetheless.
Not true. You were fantastic, and it is awesome. We got three current head coaches right now. We can dive into a lot of content on this podcast.
All the way in, baby.
All right, Coach. Here's where I want to start, and Coach H, you take it wherever you want. Where I want to start is talk about your experience with old SlamBall, because we're going to dive into the rest in a little bit.
Well, let me tell you, you mentioned it in the introduction. SlamBall is the greatest game on earth. And you know, I have a background of multiple sports. I grew up, my first sport was playing soccer. I played soccer for 8 years. My feet got too big. I kept stubbing my toe. I was unable to kick the ball anymore. So I had to stop playing that game. I went to keeper for a while, and it was cool because my arms were long. But, you know, I quickly began to realize you only have time for so many things. So I transitioned. I started playing baseball and football at 9 years old. I didn't really play basketball because those other three sports took up all the time. Didn't play basketball till 11th grade in high school because I was tall. So they're like, you should play basketball. So I was just an athletic guy who couldn't shoot or dribble for that matter, but I could just dunk and run fast. So they found a place for me. But what I started to realize was that I had some good athletic kind of jumping ability, and I had some decent ability on the football field. But I never found a sport that really allowed me to leverage all of that. And then it just came to me at one point where a friend called and said, hey, my guy at SlamBall says he wants to look at a guy like you. So next thing you know, I took a day off from teaching my middle school classroom. And I said, all right, let's go to this tryout. And the rest is history. I got a chance to go try out. And And, some crazy coach took a chance on me when I got to LA, and guess I did something worthwhile of being drafted in the draft, and some crazy lunatic coach drafted me. And then next thing you know, I was a SlamBall player.
Okay,
So-
wait.
So,
PA, this is why I love you. You make it sound like you're 5'6", 140 pounds. Someone took a chance on me. Listen, you're like a walking Adonis, 6'6". You're like the Dick's Sporting Good model that actually talks. It's not just a guy standing in Dick's. Like you actually talk. Can we get a little more detail? Talk about your specs. Talk about this isn't like you're a high flyer. Come on, man. Like I love it.
Okay,
I
okay.
can be.
All right. Well, I'm 6'6", 230, ran 4.32 on the grass, 10.9 broad jump, that type of deal. Hit my face on the rim a few times, just in general basketball. And when I got to the tryout camp, I dunked it. I was trying to be gentle, and they were like, no, we want you to snatch it all the way. It was one of those kind that you have in your driveway that like kind of will tip over if you hang on too much. I tried to snatch it all the way to the ground, and I kind of almost accomplished it. But I caught it while I was standing on the ground with the rim, and then I just let it back go. So that was sufficient. But look, I'm a competitor. I played professional football, and I finally found a sport that wasn't going to keep pushing me to the side. And the reason why I say some crazy guy took a chance on me, because I honestly do not remember, and we are talking about Kirsch, but I did not remember doing anything significant in the training, like camp process, to the point where I was like, man, I sure hope somebody drafts me. So that's just a testament to a 24-year-old kid's vision. Again, talking about Kirsch, who's younger than me as my head coach. His vision to say, this is the kind of guy that can fit into my system. And now I know I'm talking about the old school, but now if you fast forward 20 years later, you saw the same thing happen this time. A guy that literally is going, who can fit my system? And he found somebody to fit the system, and he found multiple people to fit the system. And I can't quite see what that thing says in the background of his deal there, but they did decent this year in Series 6. And I think he once again accomplished the goal of finding people to fill his system. I was just honored to have the opportunity to do that. So SlamBall is the greatest game in the world. In 2003, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a platform. Even though we weren't making much money, it gave me a platform to reach out to the kids I was working with and to say, hey, you can watch me on TV, help me build my training business. SlamBall really changed my life. It helped me go around the world. I went to countries I would have never gone to. I went to Italy. I went to China. It really set a platform for me as a young 20-something man, like trying to, pun intended, spread his wings and really try to find his opportunities in this world. And, SlamBall, I have everything to thank for that. And definitely Coach Kirsch to thank for that as well, for taking me on.
Well, you hit on a good point, though, which is that a lot of people don't understand that the training camp process leading up to the draft is very condensed. Like, you really don't have enough time to train up the guys and see everything that they can do. So, I mean, Coach H, and you both know this after the draft from last season, what you end up doing is you have to make some judgment calls at the end on, like, I see the trajectory of this player and I think he can get where we want him to be, right?
Yeah.
Or I see the character in this player and hopefully he can get where we want him to be. But if not, we know he's going to be an exceptional team guy. It's those types of things. Right. But TA, talk about, like, we drafted you. Obviously, you were part of the mob. You've got a really good story, I know, on because you were a little tentative in the tramps. You were one of the guys that like didn't, if people had seen you halfway through the season, you would have gone in the first round, maybe if not number one overall. So talk about like the process of getting comfortable on the tramps and how that happened for you.
Well, I do want to say I did still go in the first round, but you had the fourth pick.
That's right.
So I was fourth overall pick in the first round. But so I think SlamBall is very counterintuitive in so many ways as it relates to how you become comfortable with the tramps. I was a pretty high jumper. Like I dunk. Like anybody in Orlando area, they knew me. Like he's going to dunk on you. Like if he gets anywhere around the paint, he's getting off the ground and don't be in the way type deal. Like I couldn't shoot or anything when I was younger, but I could always jump. So when I got to SlamBall, it was counterintuitive because I realized you can't jump off of a tramp. You jump into a tramp. And fortunately, I had 3 people that all teamed up on my team to really try to make sure I actually understood it. So that was LaMonica Garrett, right, the machine. That was Sean Inches Jackson and Chris Robbins. So they all knew my background, Chris being a football player, LaMonica being a football player, Sean being a basketball player, and all three had been very successful in the game in season 1. And they said, listen, you run 4-3, right? I said, yes. They said, okay, we'll take 4-3 into the tramps. I go, okay. And then LaMonica said, you play with physicality and force, right? I said, yeah. I said, we'll take force into the tramps. I go, okay. Sean said, jump from here this time, right? I go, okay. He goes, and Sean, and then Chris is going, take that 4-3. And Sean's going, yeah, but now jump from here. And the first time I did it, and then he kept moving his foot further back. I'm like, I can't jump that far. He had me jumping from midcourt, essentially from midcourt to hit the top tramp. And the first time I hit it, and Brendan was there, I hit it, and I went so high and fast and far that I hit my chest. This is a true story. At the top of the backboard, and I threw the ball down because it was like a bug smashing into a windshield. And I went, oh my God! I said. And then I grabbed the rim with my right hand, and I grabbed the top of the backboard with my left hand. I said, "Oh my God, what just happened?" Because I had never even gotten barely off the tramp before. And then I looked down at them, and they're all like, "Do that again." Right? So I did it the second time, and I went like this. So I went up about 20 feet in the air, and I go, "Oh my gosh, I'm glad the island is soft." I had that much time to think about that on my way down. And then the third time, I figured it out. And all this happened with 1 week left before our season. And so next thing you know, I have this talent that I didn't know I had. Brendan's going, God dang it, this is what I've been looking for. And this is who I knew he was. This is why I drafted him. And all my teammates are going, yes, we got us one. So the cool thing was the system allowed me to not have to do too much, but just fall in line, catch the one tramp lobs, be in the right place at the right time. And good news is it really worked out. So I was very thankful for all of that collective kind of team effort to kind of get me to where I needed to be because I was nervous. I didn't think I'd get drafted. I didn't. I was like, I'm going to have to go back broke to Florida, getting cut. There was 200 guys out there for 64 spots. I'm like, man, there's no way they're going to pick me. And thank God, Brendan took a chance on me.
Now, one thing about you that I've always been impressed by your level of curiosity and your able to be open to accept learning, right? Where a lot of athletes don't. If you don't mind talking about a little bit, obviously it comes from family, that comes from how you're raised, that comes from ups and downs. Like how important is that curiosity piece as an athlete trying to get into SlamBall or any other sport for that matter?
Right. And I'm glad you said any other sport because, something like golf, you can say, I'm a good athlete. How come I can't hit the ball straight? Like you have to be able to listen to other things that are happening around you. Because there are people that have done the game better than you. Like it makes no sense for me to not really tap into the people that have done it best. And you have to have a level of humility, right? And humbleness to say, I'm just not as good as I want to be at this thing. And, fortunately, to your point of other sports, I had been cut. I always say even when I present now and do keynote speeches and stuff like that, like I've been cut from more teams than I've made. Right. And it's that perseverance. It's that grit. It's that stick-to-itiveness that you learn. But you start realizing, like, if I could do this all myself, I would have done it by now. And I'd been successful. I'd be some NFL star or NBA star. But that's not the case, right? So who can I lean on? And now the reality of professional sports is that some people aren't willing to give up that information, right? Because they don't want you to be better than them. It's just a reality, man. Everybody's fighting for the same, chips. So. But once you realize that you're in a family, and at the time when I got drafted to the Mob, I really felt that family. Nobody on that team had anything but an interest on helping you get better. So it made it very easy for me to ask questions. I asked different questions to Chris Robbins than I would ask to LaMonica, than I would ask to Inches. And I think that, and I don't want to jump ahead, but that wasn't just as a player, right? That's as a coach. And I mean, I've had talks with both of you guys, and both of you guys have seen me as a grown adult go to both of you all and say, hey, how did you look at this scenario? How did you face this situation? You guys have been coaches. I'm now a coach. I would love to know how you viewed this type of scenario and how you responded or how you reacted. So I really appreciate you all for that. And other coaches have been like that as well. But I think that without the ability to be curious, like you said, and really find the information necessary to get better, you're just going to stay the same. And if you're staying the same, essentially you're just getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think you bring up a point that we've tried to reiterate a number of times, which is that SlamBall really is a brotherhood when you look at the players. Like it always, and we talked about this in camp, and it's easy to get away from it once you get drafted. Yeah, but it's a brotherhood where everybody is trying to make everybody a little bit better during camp. and then you get drafted, and then you get into team camp, and then it gets fun, it gets competitive, it gets fun. There's still a brotherhood there. Nobody's trying to hurt each other out there.
Right.
It's still a brotherhood with mutual respect, but you are just worried a little bit more about your teams.
Yeah.
And then usually when you get into the off-season period, maybe not quite yet, I've noticed, because there is like social media, there is all these platforms where we can all talk our mind, and there certainly is more than enough talk out there for everybody. But at some point, you get back to the point of it being a brotherhood again, right? Because the reality is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, not all these players are going to get reserved on a team. SlamBall's not even going to allow that to happen. So let's say that a player with a team with an identity like the Ozone can only keep 3.
Yeah.
Or can only keep 4, or the Buzzsaw, or the Mob, whoever it is. Well, some of those players are going back, and some are going to struggle to get redrafted with how good the next crop of players is coming in. So I guarantee you, even though we haven't seen it yet, probably sometime as we're getting ready to get back to training camp, you're going to see that brotherhood tighten up again. Where guys are like, man, I got your back. Like, I know you played for the Rumble last year, or you played for the Buzzsaw, or whatever it is, but I got your back. We're going to try to get drafted all over again.
And you even see it with my son Brian would always say, I love my boys in Cascade. Well, Cascade was one of the houses. There was a house off the road called Cascade, and there's 7 of these kids. There's 6 or 7 of them. They all get into this house together. Nobody's drafted. Nobody knows if they're going to make it. They're all on separate teams. But even as they all got drafted and everybody went to their team houses, those 6 or 7 guys stayed really tight throughout. Even though they were competing against each other, the guys at Cascade were always going to be my guys. So that's kind of the brotherhood that you're talking about, Brendan. We didn't have that dynamic, when we were younger. I had like one roommate or whatever, and we kind of all were around the same area. But it's even more so now. And I think finding the ability to separate yourself from that brotherhood to still be able to compete at the highest level is also a challenge, and that's part of being a pro, So it's cool to see that whole situation unfold with these guys, with these new guys.
Now, how was your transition from player to coach? I mean, you've been working with guys for a long time. It's not as if you have not, like, it's not like you came from 0 coaching experience, right? Because the playing experience was a little bit ago. Talk about, like, how were the initial feelings? You're already positive. You're a pumped up guy. Like, you breathe energy. Like, you're a breathing energy dragon is what you are, PA. That's what you are.
Sure.
So how was that for you? And talk about, like, that mental process for you to coach, to teach.
I'm going to be honest. It was challenging for me because all I could think about was actually playing the game at first. And you know what? Brendan inspired me. I know I'm not just, patting him on the back for no reason. He inspired me because
because it gives Coach H fuel. He loves it when somebody says something nice about me, because then he can come and just.
Don't worry, I'm gonna talk about how H inspired me too. But the way Brendan inspired me as a coach was he would get out there with us and he would do Z cuts with us. He would have his ankle braces on, his terrible ankles. He would have wrapped up every day, and he would be out there on the SlamBall court like he was a player with us. And I always said, if I ever have an opportunity to coach this game, I want to be able to practice with my team, like legit practice with my team. And so at first it was like, all I could do is like, man, I just want to go dunk again. You know what I mean? They were like, Slam, Rob Wilson was like, SlamBall's coming back. I'm like, yes. I start stretching. And he's like, no, wait, hold on. No. We need you to coach, buddy. Okay. We don't need a 40-year-old, 45-year-old, 46-year-old man trying to dunk on somebody. All right. Sit down somewhere and coach somebody. I was like, all right, okay, Rob, I got you. But there, make no mistake, though. I know I can still go play, but that's beside the point. My point is, it was hard at first to separate that, right? So how do I think? And what I learned too through the years of just, I've been training for over 28 years now, in the performance and fitness world. And what I learned is some of the best players on planet Earth, I'm talking about Hall of Famers that I know and that I've worked with and whatnot, of various sports, have a tough time teaching you what made them so good. Right. Mm-hmm. And there's some people that were very would anybody say Coach K was a phenomenal basketball player? Nobody thinks about that. Right. But Coach K was a pretty good ball player, but that's not how they remember him, because he used what he maybe wasn't great at or didn't have or whatever to be able to be an amazing coach. Right. So the best coaches aren't always have been the best players necessarily. Right. So being able to separate the two, but at the same time, have one lean on the other. Like, I need to lean on my experiences as a player to add value and a frame of reference for these young guys. And as soon as they start realizing, and what was cool is that when we had our Wednesday, boys pizza night that we used to do, we would always go watch film. And most of the time we were watching mob film, just to be honest, because old mob film, like me and Noah and like Sandy and like LaMonica and like Inchi, like we're watching old stuff. Like watch this, watch how they run this break, watch the positioning of the people, watch. And you're trying to tell them, and half of the time they're like, come on, old school, like old head, man. This is not old SlamBall. But as soon as they bought in to what made us successful, like the meat and potatoes of SlamBall, that's when you start to see that upward tick. So part of it is knowing what to say. Part of it is being able to put it in a easily digestible and relatable fashion so that the young guys can understand it and having that relatability. And the reason now I practice with my guys for a different reason now. I practice now because I do this, buddy. Watch this. Here's how you touch the sky. Here's how you don't. This is all you got to do. Like I can show them. I can only show them maybe once or twice before I get tired. But I show them. Don't just tell them. Don't just do as I say. Do as I do. Right. And so I think that was a big turning point for us, especially in our practices. Gennaro and I would get out there and practice with our guys, and we would score on these guys like religiously. Easily. And we're like, we're not more athletic than you guys right now, but what we are is people that understand the game. So that's what we want to make sure that we touch base with. And I think that you're starting to see all the coaches have that same type of an impact on their team.
Well, I think, I'm not on the tramps like BK is or TA.
I've seen you.
Well, listen, but now here, so when I play with the guys, I just become this facilitator, this passer. I'm doing behind the back passes. They're like, whoa. I said, guys, it's because you guys are playing so stiff, right? Sometimes we have to show them because they just don't like the passes. Yeah. People don't understand when you're watching or you're listening to this. It is so hard to pass the ball to someone cutting.
Yes.
Right. And unless they see it, or they definitely when they see someone older and definitely not as athletic as they are making these passes. It's such a big thing. And I know, every morning, guys, a BK would be at, I would say the gym, at the SlamBall court, like probably at 6:30 if he could. Luckily, his wife and kids were there, so he couldn't like just barricade himself in a tramp. But this dude was jumping up and down. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
No, but Coach, you make such a great point because nobody touches on that. I don't think we've ever touched is that like we ask so much of these players, and I do want to circle back on this with UTA because you got to experience SlamBall at a level that very few people did. But we ask so much of these players. It's physical.
Yes.
It's mentally draining.
Yes.
You're playing the game on 3 different axes.
Yep.
You're going to get hit.
Yep.
We need you to lay hits.
Yep.
You got to be fearless in the air. And oh, by the way, we also need you to be agile and like relax. You know what I mean? But that is a big part of the game. Like that is an important part of the game. So it just speaks to how hard this sport is to play. And that is what I go back to UTA. Very few people got as high as you did, man. Yeah. Like very few people ever played the game, if any. Like what was that experience like knowing that you were probably the highest jumper that SlamBall ever had? Like talk about what that experience is like in the air for people who are never going to have that opportunity.
I gotta tell you, it is like a superpower, and I don't mean it to sound like cliche, but it's like a superpower. It's like imagine having a superpower you didn't know you had, and then all of a sudden it happens, and you go, "Oh, I can do that," and then it becomes. I made it my anchor, and what really changed it for me was I knew I guess I kind of knew I jumped high, but at the beginning I used to jump, I was still nervous when I got 18, 20 feet in the air, so I was jumping like this. I was higher than everybody, but what is all these? What's going on?
I love your special effects. And here I told everybody not to watch, and all of a sudden, Coach TA has like fireworks going on behind him, and like bubbles.
Whatever, bro. Hey, listen, do your thing.
I'm pretending like you didn't plan this. Like, come on, man.
Honestly, sometimes I walk around and just fireworks just go off. I don't know how it is, but anyway,
you and Katy Perry. That's all we know. You and Katy Perry.
Cut it out. So, but what I'm saying is, and then we went to Italy in 2005, right? And I remember looking around. There's 20 of us, and these were all the best SlamBall players I had ever seen. It's almost like I was along for the trip, like I was like the bag boy or something. Not that I was being treated like that. I was being treated like everybody else. But I felt like I was like, wow, like look at this, like look at all these guys. These guys are amazing. And no, I'm serious. Like this, I don't know if it sounds like a humble moment, but it's dead serious. And I went to Mason and I asked Mason. I said, why am I here? Like I'm so appreciative to be here, but what makes you want to bring me here? And he looked at me and he said, TA, he said, you do something that nobody else in this world can do. I was like, what's that? He goes, you absolutely just touch the sky every time you go. He said, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to understand that, honor that, know that that's who you are. And I want you to go show the world what God's blessed you with. And he said this to me in 2005 in Italy. Go show the world every single time you touch the ball and touch the tramp, go show the world what God's blessed you with. And I was like, wow, man, that was so heavy on me. I said, okay. So I made a commitment to every single time I hit this thing, I'm going to punch this thing absolutely as hard as possible. And then when I started to understand that people started waiting on me, I go, okay, this is not going to always work, because I'd hit the tramp. I'd come up, Adam Hooker would wait till it come down and then jump in and just destroy me. And I'm like, okay, now let me watch, some of these guys that do that, like a Chris Young that does that one quick step, or Rick Maiden, or these guys that play for Hernando. And Hernando, I don't know if you taught this to them or what. They all seem to have orange jersey on, but these guys do that one quick step and they go in and go bam, bam. So I found an opportunity. So going high was really cool and it was amazing. But the ability to have the contrast for the real high one and the real low and fast one, right? Between watching those guys and then Brendan like kind of honing it in, that contrast is what made it valuable. And so touching the sky became a whole different ball game now, right? It's an amazing deal up there, and I never verbalized it before, but I heard Pat Graves, start verbalizing it. He said it's just like everything slows down, and it's almost like you're painting the air with whatever your movement is. And if you notice, every single time, people are who they are in the air. They look the same every single time when they're in there. You see Dak go dunk, or you see K-Slade go dunk. These guys, they look exactly the same all the time. So I realized I had a certain pose too, and it's never changed. But the ability to do that is a complete superpower. And I think that where our game is right now, more people need to really start realizing that talent that they have, because these guys are way more athletic and jump way higher than me. And that's what I want to start seeing. Yeah,
and I think to piggyback on that, kind of transitioning into new SlamBall and your experience as the coach of the Ozone, what in your eyes was the biggest evolution in the game, or how did the game change from old SlamBall to new SlamBall?
The biggest positive evolution for me, was watching people utilize their bounce down, understand how to use it in the slam zone to create opportunities. For instance, in football, you talk about a dual threat quarterback, right? Well, that's a guy that can pass or a guy that can run, right? But the best quarterbacks don't just run. They use their feet to set up the pass, right? They're setting up other opportunities to continue to pass the ball. And for me, that's what I want to see people do. I want to see people utilize the bounce down to create additional opportunities, not just for themselves, but for other people. So as the season went on, it's almost like training camp was 3 weeks too short, because in those first 3 weeks, people accelerated rapidly. Their skill set just took off. And if we would have had 3 more weeks of the season, we would have seen some of the most incredible things we've ever seen. But they were just figuring it out. And then next thing you know, the season was over with. But the biggest evolution was that bounce down. And then people, the creativity, man, of how they utilize the differential of the stopper is just incredible. And I think Stan had a lot to do with that, and he always has. But for the first time, Stan was teaching people the way he saw the game, right? Shakes is the greatest in my mind, opinion, experience. He's the greatest that has ever touched a tramp ever, and probably ever will be until I'm proven otherwise. But I saw Stan be able to actually, unlike what I was saying earlier, be able to verbalize what he was looking at. I'll tell you a perfect example, right? I said, Stan, how do you know when you bounce down, how do you know when to throw it high to go dunk on the guy, or when to throw it low to bounce low when he goes high? He goes, I don't. I throw it to the same height every time. I said, what? He said, yeah, I throw it about 6 feet off the ground, and I know if I'm going high, I can catch it on the way up. And if I'm going low, I can go right through it and reach up and grab it. And I throw it to the same place. And so, I never saw the game like that. And neither did anybody else. So as soon as I got to training camp, they were starting to see the game a little bit differently. So the evolution of all those things started to increase rapidly. Now, probably a little too much, because there are a few guys out there that I could saw being potentially just like me, right? And I saw 1 or 2. But I think there could have been like 5 or 10 guys in the league that could have just gone, 25 feet in the air and just embarrassed people all day long. I just don't ever think we got to that in this Series 6. But that's one of the things that makes me so excited about Series 7. Once they understand the value of what going really high unlocks, that's when they're going to be able to balance that out with all the new stuff that they know now. And now our game is just going to really explode this season.
Yeah, for sure. And go ahead, Coach.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, when you're just teaching that or you're looking at players, talk about how you're getting them, the players, to buy into that, right? Because again, it's not normal to be that high in the air. And the reality is you're still one of the few guys in the world who gets as high as you do to dunk the ball.
Yeah.
So how do you, I know it's, it's consistency. It's like they'll just build confidence, but there's still a mindset that I'm way up in the air.
It's a mindset. Like you have guys like, you have to be, as Lamont, to quote the great philosopher, Lamonica Garrett, he said, you got to be a little nuts upstairs, right? You got to be a little nuts upstairs. And you do. And there's a fearlessness. I'm sorry I'm talking about my teammates a lot, but Noah Ballou is probably the most fearless human being that I've ever met, not just SlamBall player. Like, who spins around 2-3 times and then lands on their back and comes back up and flips around and does it again at the expense of their body the entire time. He's like an X Games, like BMX, like snowboard, like Sean. All those people rolled into one. And that's what Noah is, but with a basketball in his hand. So you have to be a little nuts. But I think one of the things, to answer your question, what really helped me relay what was necessary to these guys is I said, you have to have a mindset to just absolutely attack. I always said, if we can attack, go as high as possible and be as physical as possible, everything else will fall into place. We started to figure it out towards the end this season. But here's the deal. If you go maximum height and you tell somebody about it, it's one thing. But if you show them, it's something else. And I was able to – I had video to show them, like, look, watch this. He has my timing. He's coming off the pad. He's hitting. He's doing everything right. But watch this. And I hit, and it goes up, and they come down. I go, you have that ability too. You have to have the mentality. Ability and mentality. Once the mindset matches the skill set, now we really got something going, right? But a lot of these guys had this skill set all along, but didn't have the mindset to match, or vice versa. And I think that just comes with experience. The guys only had 4 weeks to play the game, right? So we're talking about skills that I developed over a period of time. But I think being able to show them, and that's, again, why I keep myself in shape, because I want to be able to show them everything that I'm saying. Show you, not just tell you. And but I think, guys, I'm telling you right now, we're going to see this game dramatically change because people are going to start realizing their opportunities up top. And I think that, very few people realize their opportunities up top. And I'm excited about this time. What the heck are these bubbles, man? I don't know.
Listen, man. And every time you point, you do the thumbs up. Do the thumbs up. See,
Where the bubble? No, I think you make such a good point, Tia. And if you look at it, Rodney Bond being out there teaching the stoppers, not even his own stopper.
No.
Connor Hollenbeck, who is very, very good, but a lot of the stoppers. You got Noah out there teaching them how to quick. You got Stan Fletcher out there teaching them when they transfer to watch the stopper and watch his height so that you know whether to go low and quick or you know whether to go on top. And you teaching guys to go high. I think it's such a beautiful transition for the sport. I'm so happy that Mason Gordon really put his foot down because they did. That the rumor was, I'll say it was a rumor, it's not a rumor. The rumor was that they wanted to bring in some celebrity coaches, just like they tried to do back in the day with John Starks and Xavier McDaniel and some of these guys. And Mason put his foot down and was like, absolutely not. If we want the sport to grow organically, we need to bring in the ex-players to coach it and to teach it. And that's what they did. So that's awesome. Now, we've got to touch on kind of the Ozone, right, with Ozone specific with new season. So I know it was not the season that you wanted to have. Talk a little bit about your experience with the Ozone this season and what you felt like coming up short.
So I've had a lot of time to think about it. Listen, we were less than desirable as far as our win-loss record, right? And by no means is this an excuse, but it's a reason. We were very successful in the preseason. Nobody was able to do anything with us at all, and all of you guys saw it. So in the preseason, a guy like Keith McGee, who is just a phenom, he's like Stan. I don't mean to be stepping outside of myself by saying that, but he's like a little version of Stanley who just does not understand enough yet about it. But I saw that we could run scheme. My mob old school mob mentality and be successful. One tramp lob, we can do that a few times. But then when it's time to get a bucket, Keith can go down and get a bucket in preseason anytime he wanted to.
Yeah.
We were playing against Stan and those guys. They quit the game in the third quarter. I'm not doing to talk junk. Stan knows I love him. They quit the game because Big Vince like went upside like Tony's head or something like that, and he was like, we quit. We were winning by like 15 points, and Keith had about 60. I'm not lying. Keith had about 60 points, and it's the third quarter, and they were like, we're done. We're not going to get our players hurt. I'm like, okay, cool, I get it, right? But we used to just be stomping people in preseason. But how did we get there, though? We got there because Keith would just put it all on his back and go. What are you supposed to say? Stop scoring? Like, what do you do? So, and another big key with that was that Brian wasn't there because Brian got injured in training camp and was out for about 4 weeks. And so there was no real chemistry. Brought up Marcus, who was a taxi squad player. He was phenomenal for us on both sides of the ball, if you will, offensively and defensively. Q came along. He was in that third group, and Q came along, and he gave some good buckets and great minutes all the time, started most of the time. So, but we never had any real chemistry with who I felt were the two best players on the Tramps, which was Brian and Keith. So not until the day before the first game did Brian get cleared. And so you can see when we tried to integrate him, it was a slow process. It ended up being okay, but it was too little too late. And I think that if I can go back and do it again, I would say, I don't care if you can score. Like, I appreciate it. Like, whenever you need to do it, and I would say, okay, go score, go do it. But I will do a better job of making sure that we stick to the script early so that we always have an anchor to anchor back to, a foundation to anchor back to. And I think that's what both of you guys did on your team so well, which was you always had your foundation and you were able to anchor to it.
Well, it is tough because I know when I was coaching the bouncers, in the preseason, we were always – just call me the Miami Dolphins, right? We just start off fast all the time, and then we just kind of like just don't finish the thing. But it is. I think it's like a building process with everything else, and we learn so much. Like all those years where my team was decent, like I learned it for this year, and then learned, obviously perhaps with BK, and then watching everybody and everything else, and just like coaching, it's how do you adjust how did you find adjusting in the game, like in-game adjustments, which is hard because they're only 5-minute quarters.
Yeah.
How was that? I know for me, it was like how to get used to that again was like, man, how was that for you? I think that's a big part of the game.
It was tough. And the reason why in-game adjustments were tough for me is because I only had 5 players for most of the season. Right. Mm-hmm. So like my guys were hurt. And one thing that I thought was interesting about you all is that you all were hurt most of the preseason. But as we got back, with the exception of Mike, as you got back to the regular season, you guys had your guys. So I remember Sandy telling me you guys would go, okay, y'all 3 come out, y'all 3 go in. And it was like we had units. Like I could not afford to take any 3 of my guys off the floor because I didn't have 3 back there. So I never had the opportunity to do a clean sweep or give guys a real break. And my guys were putting it on the line, and they were, it's a taxing game. So it took some getting used to for me. One of the reasons why we got a little bit better throughout the years, I had a guy like Donovan Bird who come in, who was also injured most of the time, and he would come in and give me quality minutes. And you know what? We put a lot of emphasis on scoring, but being able to tramp deny somebody and keep somebody from getting a full run and stuff, those guys like Donovan Bird, they were phenomenal at that and redirecting people and stuff. So those minutes are not just about points. Those minutes are about quality defensive minutes as well. And that's why we had typically some, relatively low scoring games. Like we held people, the best players in the league, we held to minimal points because we knew how to take somebody out of the game. But at the end of the day, you need more warm bodies, So the adjustments were challenging. But again, it's not an excuse because everybody was dealt a hand. I mean, you lost your second round pick for this season. You know what I mean? You lost your top scorer, Brendan, for the play in the playoffs, right? Hurt his ankle. So everybody had to deal with some adversity. Some dealt with it better than others, and I know that I can do a better job. I think we did a decent job, but I know we can definitely do better.
Yeah, and you touched on 2 points that I think are super important. The first one is you did mention for teams that got hit by the injury bug, the pace of play is slower.
Yeah,
it has to be because you don't have the bodies. You can't just shuttle guys in and say, hey, let's go at breakneck speed, which is what the teams all want to do, right? Is you just can't do it because SlamBall is such an exhausting game. Right. And the second point that you make is it's tough sometimes, I think, as a coach when you look and you have a superstar. like a Stan Fletcher, who coached the Steel back in the day, Brian Taylor, right? Like Brian Taylor had Stan Fletcher. And it's hard to look at what Stan's doing and be like, all right, but we still need to run our system, right? When he's just crushing you, crushing you. That's where I think SlamBall, there's some downside to having a superstar that can score at will.
Yes.
Because if you take that player away, if you figure out a way to take that player away, or God forbid that player gets injured,
right,
you're between a rock and a hard place.
For sure.
Because you need to have – SlamBall, in my personal opinion, is such a team sport.
Has to be.
Like, it's such a team sport because you need to find different ways to attack a stopper.
Right.
And if you go back to old school season 1, which we shouldn't even count as a season, where it was just like one-on-one with the stopper
has
away.
the most glorious moments in season 1.
I mean, he knew how to coach it like in season 1, but those guys were just killing each other, and you realized it's like it's not about the one-on-one play; it's about misdirection.
Yes,
and it's not one type of misdirection. If you came down and you threw the same lob every single time, that's not going to work in SlamBall. Teams are going to wise up to that real quick. You have to use multiple layered attacks and different means of misdirection in order to like score in the stopper. I just think
say that again. Say that one more time, Brendan.
I just think it goes back
Did
to.
you say layers? Okay, got it.
It goes back to it's hard to have a superstar in SlamBall, man, because it makes you question. Do we really need to run a complex system to get around the stopper? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, but to that point though, Brendan, like I never considered myself a superstar at all. Never that. But I led a whole series in scoring and got MVP and we won the championship and all that. But I still don't even look at myself like when I look who's the superstar, I look at Noah as a superstar. These guys, everybody, all I was doing was filling the role that you put me in. I really only did one thing. Like what and they couldn't stop me from doing it. That's all it was, right? But
that's what good systems do. Yeah. Good systems put players in their very best position to shine. That's what they do. I would not put Brandon Simpson as a gunner coming off for multiple lobs, right? Like I need him distributing the ball and playing defense. And you just put a great system, you put good players in that system and they are set up to succeed. And everybody has a different system. Like I love what Coach H did and Coach T. I saw what you were doing towards the end of the year as like the offense developed and you got more players healthy and you were starting to create a multi-layered attack on the stopper, which I thought was awesome. Yeah. And that kind of leads to my next question is we've got Series 7 coming back. Yeah. Like what does the Ozone have to do to compete for a championship in Series 7?
I think we've got to really get we were really good at the fancy stuff, and we weren't good enough at the fundamentals. I think it just really comes down to that. Can you get ahead of steam, attack, and go real high, dunk on his head whether he's there or not? Okay? But mentality-wise, that's where I need my guys to be. Okay? But then we all know. I was watching season 2 clips the other day showing Brian, right? I said, watch Sean attack. Does it look at any moment like he's going to pass the ball? He said, no. I said, that's why the stopper's all the way on that side of the tramp next to him. And what does he do? He drops it over top, and here I come from the backside to dunk the ball. No, but every single time we attack, you always taught us, it has to look like we were 100% going at the stopper because we got to draw him. Think about that. If you look across all the games this season, how many teams really did that? Like how many, like even you guys, like Brendan, as successful as you were, you had an absolute fraction of the one tramp lobs that we used to have back in the day, like throwing from one person attacking and then laying it for the other. You had a fraction of those because the game, they look at the game differently. But I think the more we can actually get back to that season 2, season 3 mentality and add that to all these amazing things that these young guys are doing, our game is going to really, really take off. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the key for it.
Listen, I'm going to have to go ahead and just hang up right now and just freaking mom.
Can't handle it anymore?
I can't. But seriously, I love you guys. But the real job calls, everybody. So listen, you guys can continue your love fest here. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, this is the part right now where you either turn it off, because now it'll just be mob talk. Not SlamBall Nation. It'll be Mob Nation the next 20 minutes or so.
Oh, God, here we go.
Erroneous.
You could draw the line in the sand, fans, and say, you know what? We don't want any more mob. We need to clean the streets. The streets don't need riffraff like the mob out here. If you're with that, then sign off with me right now.
All right, so we've done our very first edit in the history of SlamBall Nation, where we had to edit because Coach H had to jump off. So I apologize. We're sitting here making all these empty promises like don't watch us, and then all of a sudden Coach TA has fireworks and bubbles going off in his screen, and then that we're one take wonders, and then we have to cut because Coach Hernando has to go to a production meeting of some sort. But we're back.
Right.
We're back, and it's not going to be all mob talk. That was totally erroneous on Coach H's part. We all know he's super gel bells, that he's not part of the mob family, just peanut butter and jealous. But Coach, one of the things that I did want to touch on with you, that was a big part of your career. People don't understand this, and a lot of the current players are going to get a taste of this as we have coming up. Right now, SlamBall is in the process of determining how many players each team is going to get to reserve. Right? And it's always been a huge part of SlamBall. When we talk about like when you were drafted in the first round, I think we were able to reserve 4, and we did, or maybe it was 3.
It was 3.
Drafted you. That's right.
Yeah.
And then after we had you for series 2, I had to keep 4.
No, it was 3.
Believe.
It was 3
again. It was 3 again. And we ended up having to make a really tough, because we had Sean Jackson, we had LaMonica Garrett, we had Noah Ballou, we had you, we still had LaMonica. We ended up having to make some really tough decisions, and you got thrown back into the draft pool. Now, of course, as a head coach who had Trevor Anderson, throwing him back in the draft pool, I look like an idiot, but the hope is that somehow you're able to draft that player back, right? Because it used to be that you still got a first-round draft pick. You still got that first-round draft pick, and if the player that you let go gets back to you in the first round, you can get him back. It sounds like this time around, reserving players is going to count as the first, second, third, fourth-round picks. So it really does come at a high cost of draft capital. But I want you to talk about that experience of like being part of the mob family, getting released, not being reserved, and then immediately being scooped up in the first round of the draft and not playing for the mob after that.
Yeah, so we talked earlier about, having the humility to ask questions, to get better and things like that. I think you also must have the humility to know, like, and you and I had this conversation and I understood. And I said, if I were you and I was trying to decide who I was going to keep on the mob, I would have kept those 3 guys as well. I would have kept Sean, LaMonica, and Noah. Those guys, I mean, they're amazing. I mean, they have a track record of success. They are the mob. You know what I mean? So, not that I'm not, but I think you could do without me. All 3 of those guys contribute at a high level in a different way. So I understood that, and I accepted the opportunity to be able to potentially go lead my own team, maybe, right? So when I went into the draft at first, I think you're lying if you say you didn't feel a certain type of way, Tia. I did. I felt a certain way, but it wasn't a negative way. It was just a motivating way. And I didn't have any animosity towards you, as you know. We talked about it. But I said, okay, well, we have this natural thing in us as competitors that says, well, I'm going to make this guy pay for this, right? And this is an inside scoop for you all out there. Every single time I played against the mob, under my hombre's uniform, I wore mob shorts. I wore my mob red and black shorts under it, and I went to freaking work every single time. I went crazy, and I was like, he's going to know, like, he should have kept me. But that's just something that you do to motivate yourself as an athlete. I think that there are going to be some of our players that are going to get kind of reshuffled back into the deck. And a couple of things are going to happen. Number one, they're going to be a really good player that their coach had to make a tough decision, and they're going to have to go figure out their own way. And they're going to have to realize, are they as good as they thought they were? Did the league view you as good as you viewed yourself? Right? You're going to be able to tell because people are going to pick it up. And are you good enough to be it's popular talk now, this whole transfer portal and all this stuff and recruiting. Like, are you good enough to be better than the person that's coming in the new crop? And are you still draftable enough, knowing what you know and doing what you do? And have you set yourself apart well enough to be able to be drafted high onto another team? And do you accept that responsibility as potentially being a leader on that team? And I think that, there are going to be some upset people, and there are no teams out there that has a head coach that's not going to have to make a tough decision, right? I'm looking at the mob. And I'm going, you went undefeated. Like, who do you cut, right? I'm looking at my team. I'm going, man, I don't know who I'm going to get rid of, right? It might be easy to say, well, you guys didn't do as good as you wanted to this year. Get rid of all of them and let's just draft a whole bunch more. But that's not the case, man, because I think Rob Wilson said something during the draft, and I heard him. Maybe I just heard him because he was sitting next to me. He goes, 3 words, draft on potential. I don't know if you heard him say that. And I started thinking, like, yeah, I need to really think about who do I think can be something that's not that already. And I think with a 1 year under your belt, I think that people are going to really be letting people go as it relates to the potential that they have on their team, not just whether or not somebody was a good player in Series 6. So it's going to be an interesting deal to see how many we keep and who's going to be kept. It's also going to be interesting to see, like, let's say I can only keep 3 and I have to get rid of 4 of my guys. Who's available out there that can
Exactly.
that I can really get? It's an exciting deal for us as well. So I think you just got to be a professional about it as a coach and as a player, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yep. I believe that they're going to allow teams to keep at least 4. Yeah. But originally coming out of the gates, I heard you could keep all 7. And now I'm hearing a lot more 4 and a lot less anything else, which is, it's going to be an interesting exercise. I mean, you look at the players like that. That's just selfishly, I think about my team. And I'm like, man, if I can only keep 4, those are really tough decisions. Yes, but on the flip side of that, hopefully those guys through 18 games are able to showcase what they can do, and hopefully they get redrafted. If it's not by the mob, it's somebody else. And that's your hope for your team, is that if you can't keep everybody, it's like, hopefully they were successful enough where they're going to make an impact on another team. And you know better than anybody. See, now we are just talking about the mob because Coach H was right, but you know better than anybody. Once you're part of the mob, that's right. Once you're part of the mob, you are part of the mob family. I mean, period. That's how it goes. So
I have 4 mob jerseys in my house. It's a reality, but I don't look, that's a very positive thing for me. I've been a champion in that jersey. You know what I mean? So it's like, I use that. Like, what aspects of success? Some people played this game since the beginning, have never won a championship or never, never done a lot of significant things that the game will remember. But everybody has made an impact on the game, right? Mm-hmm. It's like Charles Barkley. Like, nobody can argue that he wasn't one of the greatest players of all time, but he never won a championship. So that's the only thing he thinks about. I think that I have an opportunity to tell my players and kind of convey to them, hey, we're a championship team because of these qualities, right? Mm-hmm. And then be able to share that with them. But I think that what's going to happen now is that you're going to have guys that you're going to get rid of that have a championship mentality, that are going to be able to bring that championship mentality to another team now. So now it's going to really, like, some of that, like, disparity in the league is going to start to level out as well. There's going to be a lot more down the middle of the road. I think it would be hard pressed to think you guys will go undefeated again. I know it's it's a nice thought, but I heard Bryce the other day telling you that they were going to go undefeated now in the lava. Yep. So we'll see how that plays out. But
there's lots of talk, because that's all there is to do this time of year.
That's all they can do. Talk. But you got a huge bullseye on your back, and and that's kind of that's exciting. You know what I mean? To do that. But I think that mentality of championship is a key.
Yeah, and I tell the guys, I'm like, it's fine if you have a target on your back, because if somebody's going to hunt you down, you just need to be standing right on their front doorstep, right? Then they don't have to go too far, and they never see your back at that point. Right. So, no, I'm with you. Going undefeated, I think that was, I think everything aligned, right? It was like a first season back. It was a returning coach with a returning system that had been tweaked. Yeah. It was a great draft. It was players that fit the system. It was like introducing the bounce down rule. It was a whole bunch of stuff happened. Yeah. But in my personal opinion, I think that playing, and you played in semifinals and championships, my personal opinion is that, and I think Mark Barikoff on a podcast brought this up, former head coach of the Bandits, but he talked about how he believed it was harder to win the semifinal game than the championship. And I do believe that. Like, when I think back on some of the semifinal games that we played, whether it was like having to play the Maulers in China with Stan Fletcher and Sean Jackson, having to play the Riders, during season.
Yeah, we lost that game by a couple points.
Yeah. That's right. And then they went on to win it. It's those games, I think, and we played the Lava this year, are a lot more challenging sometimes than the actual championship game is. So it's interesting to dive into that. But talking about the current players, like, what, in your opinion, do they need to be doing right now to get ready for Series 7 because we don't have a slam ball court. There are no trampolines around.
Right.
So you are an expert in this field. Like, what do you think they should be doing right now to get ready for the season?
Well, I mean, hopefully you have a trampoline place inside your city somewhere. You and I live in Orlando. We know there's a place called the Sky Zone. They have tramps that are less than, shall we say, not in a negative way, but they're basically dead compared to the ones we use. But they have a hoop by them, right? And I can understand. You don't want to have the most powerful tramps in the world with baskets around and have it just free for the public. I mean, think about how many safety protocols we had to go through just to be able to get on there and for Stan to even let the kids even jump side to side and tramp the tramp. But I think that what those tramps do is they give you a good playground to start to develop some creativity, some body control, some ball awareness, some rim awareness, right? And then you can go over to the big tramp that they have that's designated for just jumping, where it's much more like the tramps that we use. We use the Aussie beds, but they call them Euro beds or whatever, those high performance tramps. I think you need to get used to being as high as you possibly can go, learning how to generate force into the tramp, learning how to move low and fast and all the different things. You know, before they had an excuse before. They didn't know what to expect, but now you know exactly what to expect, right? I know that there's some people that I've seen, and more than just one that I know very well, have been weekly going to these trampoline places and developing their skill sets. And now you're starting to see a level of creativity now that's starting to develop that is just, it's really on a different level, right? So what they need to be doing is forget about the tramps. First of all, you need to get in shape. Like, you really need to get your body prepared to perform. You need to get your body in tip-top camp shape. You need to be working on strength and power, but you also need to be working on balance, range of motion, and then you have to be working on overall muscle endurance, like power endurance. It's hard to go down. I did Z-cuts one day for like 1 minute. I felt like, I was about to pass out. Like, I'm like, oh, yeah, I used to do this. But that court will take something out of you. So if you don't have something to offer to the court, not only will you get tired and can't perform, but the risk of injury goes way up. So I think that our players are going to be able to come back and prepare better in this offseason, knowing what to expect and really have a purposeful vision for what they need to accomplish when they go in on a regular basis. But don't think that you can just go, take batting practice the day before spring training and be good to go. You have to have been hitting off the tee and taking live BP for months so that you can go in sharp. So that's the same idea with these tramps.
I love it. That is such valuable insight. I hope any current players that are coming back that are listening right now, like, write all that down, because TA just gave you the blueprint to come back to camp and be ready to go. Because I'm telling you right now, you guys may think I'm crazy. I'm telling you right now, there are going to be some shocking, and I mean shocking, cuts.
No doubt about it.
And we don't even know about the next pool of players that are coming in. But traditionally speaking, the pool of players that came in every single season got better and better and better than the pool of players that we had the prior season.
No doubt.
So if you're a current player and you're not working right now, I'd be heading to the gym real soon.
And there's another thing, and current players too, you need to know this, right? I'm a football player. I'm a receiver who continue to get cut. It's hard. You might be like, oh, why are you big and fast? Like, why you get cut? You can't catch? No, I catch everything. Okay, but here's the deal. When you get into a game where the coaches, have relationship, it's all a relationship business, right? And so it doesn't matter that I'm killing everybody on the other side of the ball. It matters is, are these receivers their guy or not, right? This receiver's this coach's guy. He's that guy. They drafted him in the second round. So now I'm getting cut from these teams. But SlamBall for me at the time, 20 years when I first started playing, was an opportunity that I didn't otherwise have to go prove myself from the ground up. And they couldn't take anything. It wasn't a good old boy network or any of that type of stuff. It was what it was. Like, if you can play, you're going to get on the court. Now, here's why I'm saying this. If anybody that knows anything about pro football, when you're not talking about NFL, you had XFL and then you had USFL. They merged to create UFL. So you know what? Half of the teams in each league are gone, right? So now you have twice as many, you have 2 leagues worth of people trying to fit into one league full of players. And now you're going to have half the players that were playing last year are available right now to sign with somebody else's team. So are they going to choose to go play arena football for $200 or $300 a week? Or are they going to take a chance of doing a dream come true, jump on trampolines, dunk on people, be a big, powerful, fast athlete that wants to come compete and is hungry for an opportunity? Now, you think you got it going on because you made a team last year? Look, that's what they thought when I got out there, and there was 200 people trying out for 64 spots. And people thought that just because they were on a team last season, they were going to be on one this season. But a guy like me, a guy like George Bird, a guy like Noah Balute came in and took places. We took spots on rosters, right? Make no mistake, they already had enough players. But you have to be good enough to be better than not only the player, but better than the relationship that they've created, better than the impact that they've made. You've got to be better across the board. And if you're not, when you walk into camp, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. And I'm just letting you guys know you better be working, like Coach PK said. Be working.
I love it. Now, I have to ask this question because it's been debated amongst the coaches. Which of the two of you enjoys showing people their highlights more? Is it you or Noah Baloo?
It's definitely Noah, because Noah is on his own highlights and he's on every single one of my highlights. So if he shows mine, he really is showing his as well. If he shows his, sometimes I'm not in the picture. So just know that he gets a hit from both sides, right?
It is hilarious. I will tell everybody this story. This is a true story. TA loves to show you his highlights, and Noah Baloo loves to show his highlights. I had the opportunity to have appetizers, I guess, before a game at Bahama Breeze out in Vegas. Before a game, just have appetizers at the bar. I think TA and Noah had been golfing all day at that point. And I walked in, and they both had their phones pulled up, and Noah was trying to show me a highlight of his, and TA was trying to show me a highlight of his.
Yeah,
so.
And Noah won. So
Noah won. That's right. All right. I want to finish up with this. Tell us like a good memory or a good story, one of your favorite memories of SlamBall. Whether it's old SlamBall playing with us or the Hombres or new SlamBall, just give us a quick story or a memory that meant a lot to you.
It would sound obvious to say like winning the championship in China and all the amazing things that happened with that, but I'm not going to say that. For me, it was my very first game. Okay, well, our very first game in season 2. They said it never rains in Southern California, but that's a lie. It was raining, and they tried to make the court dry and didn't work. We played like 2 minutes, and people almost lost their life trying to stay up and sliding all over the floor. So they canceled the game. I think that was against the Bouncers, and so they just canceled it. So our first real game was against this Steele, Stan Fletcher, and it's the first time he started doing the chaser and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, Coach, you never told me what the heck do I do? Like, this guy's bouncing all around. I don't even know how to stop it. Like, I don't know what to do. Anyway, that's not my memory. My very first ever game, right? I just learned how to really jump high and dunk from far. Like a week prior in training camp, I had my first like dunk on somebody. I dunked on A. White, and I just hit the tramp like all my teammates told me to. And they said, just go high and watch what happens. I did, and everybody was like, oh my goodness, do that again. And I did it like 3 or 4 times in the preseason games. So I was like, well, maybe I can still do that when the season comes if I get a chance. So I got out there, and the first time I got the ball, I did a little quick one, and I did another little quick one. And then all of a sudden I felt like I can actually play this game, like, you know. And long story short story long, it kind of sounds like now. But at the end of the game, I had scored 27 points. My very first SlamBall game. I led the game in scoring. I got the MVP of the game. And I broke down crying. I remember like my knee was hurting and all this stuff, but none of it mattered. Like that bridge that we had to walk back to like the locker rooms, I walked across the bridge and I was just looking at the sky. I just broke down crying. I was just like, I can't believe, like, I scrounged up my $400 to try to get a plane ticket to come out here one way and said, make it or just figure it out, you know, and I got food poisoning the second day, and I was sick, and I practiced anyway, and I did everything I could. Didn't think I was going to make it, and I got drafted, and all this happened. I came early, staying late. LaMonica broke my nose in practice, and like all this stuff happened, and here we are. I'm in my first real game, and I scored 27 points, and I just broke down crying. I'm like, you know, thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to do this. I'm just so thankful and grateful that yourself and people around me believe in me enough to say, hey, you can really do this. And all I ever got was encouragement all the while. And it's like people were believing in me more than I believe in myself. I remember what that felt like. And that's the type of feeling that I want my players to have, and that I want anybody that I coach, is not just in SlamBall, but anywhere, I want my people to have, because everybody deserves to feel like that at least once. And if they haven't, I want to be the one that helps provide the opportunity to do that. So one of the main reasons for me wanting to coach is to be able to provide that type of an opportunity. And thankfully, I was able to do that.
Well, you did a great job this last year, Coach. The record is like a lot of the teams. The record's not reflective of the job that you did with those kids. And I know that it was a lot more than just coaching a sport, because they truly looked at it as family, looked at you as a leader. So, I mean, we're so appreciative to have you in SlamBall, so appreciative to have you on the nation, SlamBall Nation, one of the greatest players to ever play, arguably the highest flyer to ever play the game. Yes. Mob family through and through, even though he played for the Hombres for a season. We won't count that.
That wasn't my fault.
Trevor Anderson.
That wasn't my fault.
There we go.
But I
give your family my best, brother.
Well, I want to say one more thing. Just what you guys are doing is amazing. Bringing light to a sport that we used to be looked at like we were just a halftime show, or we were just a side show, like not that there's anything wrong with that, because we have some of our greatest players in our league now actually do that for halftime shows for teams. But it goes to show you that I'm glad they're here, because those guys, Nate and Cam and Marcus, these guys show, I do it at halftime, but guess what? I can ball too. Like, I can really do this on the SlamBall court too. So it's really cool to see that. And then, and one more thing, just this was also a dream come true for me, because I got a chance to coach my son one more time. I thought I'd never coach him again. I got a chance to coach him. So I'm just thankful for Mason and for you guys and this opportunity to play SlamBall. This past year was amazing. Did my color commentary debut, and I'm a head coach of a professional team, which I just never thought that I would do. And there's just so many experiences that I think are just so worthwhile. And hopefully we can keep this thing going for a long time, because I can't be the only one that feels like this. So thanks so much for having me on. And hey, let's keep getting better every day, baby. 2 claps. Ozone.
I love it.